all my people, and if you're watching live, checking out this on YouTube, or listening to this podcast, you are most definitely my people. We're excited for another episode of Botched, Spots, and Chair Shots. Joining us tonight is the Bare Knuckle Berserker, coming from Cincinnati, Ohio. He is Lord Crew. Lord, thanks for coming on and chatting about some wrestling tonight. How are you, sir?
What's up, man? I'm doing great. How are you?
Man, living my best life. Just kicking it in the weather we were saying before it got on. It's either hot and sunny or cold and rainy, and there doesn't seem to see any in between.
There is literal no middle ground anymore.
All right, man, let's hop right into it. You recently had an episode of AEW Dark and AEW Dark Elevation both air. Let's dive right into it, man. What was it like working for AEW?
Super cool, man. It's what I've worked the last 7 or 8 years for, was to get to that type of a situation. So to get there and actually, get in the ring with some guys who were really good. Like my first one there was with Andrade. This last one was with Sean Spears. So, getting to work with that caliber of talent in such a, high level setting is really cool. And I think I've had a decent showing both times. So hopefully they see something and keep bringing me back.
When you have a chance to go out there and work, a lot of time what you're doing is helping work. When you say work with a Sean Spears, you're going to go in there and work a match with him and to help him get over. But at the same time, how do you plan to mentally go into a match like that and keep your moveset in place and still have a chance to display what you can do in a ring? Anyways, if you kind of see where I'm saying?
Yeah. So for me, the headspace that I try to stay in is this is advice that I was given by somebody else, that when, no matter what the situation, it doesn't matter what's going on outside of the ring. When you're in that ring, that's my world. So I'm in a ring almost every weekend. So I just do what I know how to do and keep it all, try to keep control of every situation and not let what's going on outside of it trip me out. As far as the move set and stuff goes, I just stay true to myself, because that's the only way I know how to be, is me. So I try to, again, not let the setting trip me out and trip up my game. I just try to stay true to my moves, stay true to my character, stay true to myself.
What's the ring psychology like when you approach somebody like Sean Spears and then you look at somebody like Andrade? They're two very contrasting styles in the ring, and even compared to you. So it's two very contrasting styles than your style. How do you go about blending it from person to person?
You got to always try to have both people play to their strengths. In a situation like AEW Dark, like you were kind of previously mentioned, I'm there to, in this type of a situation, I'm there to further, build them and make them look like the stars that they are. So, really what I do is just going to be dictated by what they want to do. And, I will say, in this last situation, I felt like I was in the Sean Spears match. I was very much able to highlight a little bit more of what I'm capable of, and really got to show kind of who I am and what I can do. But again, it's going to be them kind of dictating what's going on in those situations. I'm just there for the opportunity and the look.
So let's talk about something a little bit more off the beaten path. Then
Sure.
you have a history with ICW, No Peace Underground. These some more of the deathmatch style wrestling, hardcore style wrestling. Let's talk about the mindset you use when you prepare for a match like that versus something very different from an AEW Dark match.
Sure. So when I never really dabbled into the deathmatch world much until December of 2020 was when I had my first one. We were coming out of COVID. We hadn't done anything. Well, myself, I hadn't done really much of anything since the beginning of the pandemic. So No Peace approached me because I was supposed to do a show for them WrestleMania weekend of 2020. And due to the pandemic, it got canceled. So No Peace had reached out to me and said, "Hey, we still want to get you down here to, make up for the WrestleMania match." So they brought me down in December of 2020. I wrestled AJ Gray, and that was my first actual taste of a death match. It was one of those things where I wasn't sure how I would do in that type of a scenario. Cause I mean, I've done, hardcore matches with chairs, tables, stuff like that, but I never done glass or tubes or anything. It was definitely like I got thrown right into the fire. You know, AJ and I beat the hell out of each other, bled a lot. Um, but yeah, it's certainly a different mindset because, there's a lot that can go wrong in a death match. There is, it's literally sometimes you can be 1 millimeter away from something going catastrophically wrong and causing bad injury. And so there's always that kind of in the back of your mind when you're doing those, is that like, this is real deal stuff. Like, and things could go very wrong and it not even necessarily be anybody's fault. It could just be a freak accident with the weaponry you have at your fingertips. But I don't know. I pretty much prepare for every match the same mentally. I just try to get in that right headspace and stretch out a little bit, maybe throw some tunes on before I go out. And then, once I'm out there, it's on.
So the No Peace Underground, they're historically known for being a little bit non-traditional. A lot of their stuff even goes as far as to not having a traditional ring, even without ropes or turnbuckles and stuff. How do you adapt your wrestling training into something that's more free for all like that, though? Like, you see what I mean? Going the opposite direction now, where it could be just AWOL. You could end up anywhere doing anything.
So in that type of a setting, you almost have to throw traditional wrestling values out the window. And then for me, I almost feel like I'm reverting back to my younger years in the hardcore scene, growing up and going to music shows and just getting in fights in bars, because that's essentially what you're doing at No Peace. Is you're just in a bar fight and you just have pretty much whatever around at your disposal. So really, wrestling training, I mean, sure, it's there for the fundamentals and stuff, but normal wrestling psychology kind of goes out the window in a setting like that. It's just essentially a bar fight, which got plenty of experience in that realm as well. I've like I said, I was a little hooligan growing up with my friends in the hardcore scene, and then I also worked security at a music venue for years. So, I've seen both sides of the coin, I guess.
Where did wrestling start for you training wise?
Wrestling training started for me here in Cincinnati, Ohio, at a school called Bone Crushers. I trained under Roger Ruffin and Abyss. Some other notable talents to come from that school are like Machine Gun Carl Anderson, Wildcat Chris Harris, Jordan Clearwater, who's currently doing some stuff with NWA and New Japan. So that's where I started. I still pop in every now and then when I got a free weekend, but my schedule's gotten so crazy. Most of my stuff's out and about now.
I know Cincinnati's a lot like Nashville, which is where I'm from. There's a rich, like, independent scene specific around here. It seems like every weekend you can go somewhere and find an independent show. What's your favorite part about running those type of house shows, for the small pop-up house shows that just, you may only be wrestling for 50 or 100 people, but the energy is just wild when you get into some of these small towns? What's your favorite part about those kind of shows?
I think my favorite part about those is, in those types of settings, the fans are all in. They're very much, they're there to take the ride. They're there to be entertained. And a lot of those fans who come to the smaller things really show the appreciation to us for what we do, and, putting our bodies on the line for their entertainment. They come up to the table and, tell you, I've been seeing your stuff on the internet, man. It's cool to watch all your progress. And, and a lot of those folks here in Cincinnati have been watching me since I very first started. So for them to be kind of along the ride with me is pretty special. And
With the rise of things like indie wrestling TV and the exposure that indie wrestling is starting to get now, what do you think about having a streaming service dedicated to you guys now, and having an opportunity for y'all to get it out there? So you could be wrestling one night in one place and it be streamed, and then 2 nights later be at another promotion. What kind of asset do you think something like indie wrestling TV is for the industry?
I think it's a huge asset because it broadens your audience to literally anyone in the entire world who has a subscription. It no longer has a boundary with borders, you know, because I've had people from England, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, all these fans that I've acquired through IWTV. And if that platform didn't exist, they would probably have no clue who I was. So I think that's fantastic. It allows us to build our brands and to reach a whole new audience of people who can't just simply make the trek to the local independent show or, you know, make a little 2-hour drive to check something out, you know. So again, that gives us an opportunity to show more people what we're about. And also I think it just gives people in general a better idea of what independent wrestling has to offer, because sometimes if someone isn't a wrestling fan per se, they might have a little bit of a skewed view on what independent wrestling really is. Like, I know for my normal job, I work with elderly folks, and they either view wrestling as WWE or just backyard. There's like no in between. You know what I mean? Like, so um a lot of them have you know, asked me about what I do, and I can direct them to YouTube and stuff like that. And then when they come back, they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that there was that type of thing that even happened." You know, so it's really cool. And again, now this gives us another avenue to reach out to bigger companies and other promotions as well, because it's not like we're in the old school days of having to literally burn a DVD of your work and mail it to promoters. Like, now there's this online catalog that they can reference. And there's been several times where I've had promoters reach out to me and say, "Hey, I saw this match on IWTV. Like, you know, I want you to come work for me." And, you know, that's great, because it saves us a lot of energy on having to, you know, send burned DVDs around. So
It's funny that you bring that up, because when I was younger, I was a tape trader. So I was one of the guys that would sit in front of my VCR, recording onto VCR tapes and then making copies of it so I could trade it with friends who saw other shows or had a chance to do this.
that's awesome.
For me, when I think independent wrestling, I go back to the territory days in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, back when they were all over the place. A lot of people during those times, there were regional titles all over the country based on every territory. So holding those regional gold and the territory titles used to be prestigious. For somebody who's held regional titles and territory titles, what does it mean for you in 2022?
That to me is always I carry a title as a badge of honor, because that tells me that the promotion that I'm working for has put enough trust in me as a performer to carry that and to, you know, represent their company. And I think that it's something that should be held with a high regard, because again, that's somebody putting the name of their reputation basically in your hands. So if you're not holding up your end of the deal as the champion and performing to the best of your abilities, then it kind of makes a promotion look bad. So anytime I've ever been given the privilege of holding a championship at a promotion, I try to hold it with the highest regard and you know, wear it proudly and, you know, defend it with everything I've got.
So a lot of people want to know things like, what's your favorite city to wrestle in? Not me. What's the absolute worst city you've ever had to wrestle in?
Oh God, that's tough.
It
'Cause I
could
feel
be
like
it could be a
I feel like
venue.
there's
It could be any
no
any
I
reason
feel like there's no
whatsoever.
right answer to this. Um, Honestly, man, probably New York City. And the reason I say that is not because of the fans or not because of the promotion or the match or anything like that. I just hate New York City. It's a pain in the ass to get around. It's crowded, and my biggest fear on planet Earth is rats. Like, if I see a rat, I just get this crippling anxiety and like start freaking out, and they're everywhere. Like, the rumor has it that there's more body mass of rats in Manhattan than there are human beings. So it's like they're everywhere. There's no escaping them.
Your
So
worst
I just
nightmare.
have this constant anxiety, and I'd rather not. So
Okay,
That'll be
well,
my answer.
I will give you an easy one though. What is the coolest place you've ever got to wrestle?
Um, the coolest place, venue or just city in general?
Go for one of each. The coolest venue you feel like you've had a chance to work,
Um,
and the coolest city.
the venue might be WrestleMania weekend of last year at the Cuban Club in Ybor City down in like the Tampa area because it was like legit haunted. So like there was all kind of like spooky history in that building, and then also like people who were there said that some weird stuff happened. Nothing happened to me, but so that was kind of cool. Um, then there was also this for Blackcraft Wrestling's very first show. There was a super sweet venue we wrestled at in Pittsburgh. I can't even tell you the name of it, but that was one of my favorite venues. The way it was set up and the way it looked on camera. And then city, I've been doing some tapings in Los Angeles, so I really enjoy LA to visit. I don't think I could live there, but I definitely enjoy getting to go out for a couple days here and there. Orlando is always a good time. I was quite fond of Dallas. This last year, WrestleMania weekend was the first and only time I'd ever been to the state of Texas, so I dug it down there.
Nice. You've done some work too with Primetime Wrestling. They're right up the road from me in Lexington. What do you think about working down towards the South Territories?
I really enjoy Southern crowds because it's a different kind of crowd, Oh, I'm an idiot. I want to backtrack on one thing real quick. One of my favorite venues was the Center Stage in Atlanta, Georgia, because that was where WCW used to film, the Saturday night program and stuff. So the history of that building and being in there was really cool. But that goes back to the Southern wrestling crowds. They just are so fun. They get so into it. They get so fired up. So Primetime Wrestling was a blast when that was still a thing. They're running a new joint now called Gen Next. I've done a couple shows for them, and it's a lot of the same crowd. New South Wrestling is in Lexington, Kentucky now. I've been doing stuff there, and like I said, the crowds are always very fun. They're there to, be entertained and to also kind of entertain us in a way. So
I have a partnership with a promotion just south of the city here, and their crowd is when I talk to you about it, it doesn't matter if there's 25 people in the crowd or 100 people in the crowd with us. They are ruckus. And it's almost like those same 25 or 50 people could be put up against 200 just because those local small town outlaw shows, they just get so into it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they're so passionate. And it reminds me of the old days when the guys were ready to come over the railing to get you. You know what I mean?
Or when you had the Smoky Mountain grandma.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
That used to always sit front row at Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and she'd be right up in the wrestlers' faces and stuff. See, I'm here for it. I love wrestling grandmas. It's great.
That's one of my favorite things about independent wrestling is it still has that feel about it. And I feel like, not to backtrack, but something like IWTV allows for everybody to see in a big picture of what independent wrestling truly means in 2022. Because like you said, there's a skewed view of it that you're either in the big times with WWE or you're backyard wrestling on a trampoline somewhere. It seems like a lot of times to the casual wrestling fan, there's no in between there when there truly is.
Yeah, and that's why I try to encourage people to, because there's a lot of people who I've known throughout the years who, whether or not I've fallen in or out of touch with them over time, when they see me post oh, I'm appearing on AEW Dark, they recognize that as this massive thing, and they're like, oh, he's accomplishing something cool here. But then they reach out to me, and this is one of the things that chaps my ass about being a pro wrestler is you get people who you haven't talked to in 5-10 years who see that you're wrestling and doing some shots for these bigger companies, and they go, hey bro, when you make it big, be sure to get me some tickets. It's like, dude, I haven't talked to you in 5 years. And and so I always rebuttal with, that sounds great, but why don't you come buy a ticket at a local show and support me on the come up instead of waiting until I get to the top to, all of a sudden care. Your support helps so much more than you may ever give yourself credit for. And if more people would be willing to support you on the way up instead of just, wanting to pop out of the woodwork once you start doing some cool shit, I think it'd be good for everybody.
No, I completely agree. You see that as much as you hate it, you see that a lot with people. Is when as soon as they start to see some success, they come crawling out of the woodwork for you.
Yeah, but
So I end every interview I do with 5 rapid fire questions. I've got your 5 queued up and ready to go. If you're ready.
let's get it.
All right, your favorite musical artist or performing group?
Judas Priest.
That's a killer answer. That's the first time somebody said Priest for me. I've gotten a
My
lot
dog's name. My dog's name is Halford.
That's awesome. I'm an old school metalhead too. I grew up on Metallica and the grunge scene with Stone Temple Pilots and stuff like that. So that early '90s metal scene was my jam. What's your favorite finisher of all time?
My favorite finisher of all time is the Orange Crush, and that's why I use it as mine.
All right. What is your favorite entrance theme of all time?
The Brood.
That's a great one. What do you think about this new Edge thing that they've got going on with Judgment Day? Have you been watching any of the current WWE stuff?
Is that what everybody's kind of calling the House of Black ripoff or whatever?
Yeah,
I think I saw like one or two little things about it. I'll be honest with you, I haven't really been watching a ton of WWE. I caught most of WrestleMania this year, but yeah, I haven't watched anything really since then. I get so busy with wrestling. It's just, you know what I mean?
There is a
I'm
ton
too
of
busy worrying about my own stuff and staying in the gym and all that to really sit down and watch a ton of wrestling.
I don't want to go off the rapid fire, but do you
Sure.
watch currently any modern wrestling right now or anything that's on air?
I try to stay up on AEW, and then I definitely try to check out all the big New Japan events.
Yeah, I've just recently started to cut my teeth on New Japan. Coming up for me in the American South, it was all NWA, Crockett Promotions, WCW. So it's kind of cool to get exposed to some of that. What is your favorite food?
My favorite food is chicken wings.
That's a good answer too. You can never go wrong with pizza or cheeseburgers for me every time, all the time. Pizza and cheeseburgers. If you had to pick one city on the planet you've never had a chance to wrestle in, where would you wrestle?
Tokyo, Japan.
Also a killer pick. Lord Crew, I appreciate you coming on and chat about some wrestling. Plug your stuff for us. Tell all the listeners where they can find you and what you got going on.
All right. You can catch me at Facebook. Just search Lord Crew. Instagram and Twitter at Lord Crew Kills. ProWrestlingTees.com/Lord Crew. Yeah, I'm going to be starting a YouTube channel here soon where the premise is going to be me doing food reviews in the places that I travel and when I try out new things. So keep an eye open for that. And I just want to say thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And yeah, it was a good time talking a little wrestling.
Well, welcome to another episode of Botch Spots and Share Shots. Tonight we are excited to bring on a really special guest. He is the perfect athlete. He is the master of the suplex. He is legit perfect Perkins. Mr. Perkins, how are you tonight?
Doing good, living life, can't complain. Yes,
Excellent. Let's just dive right into it. We were talking before you got on the air. You just got done doing some work with Pro Wrestling Magic. Can you talk about the promotion, how your work was with them?
Yeah, Pro Wrestling Magic is great. Every time I'm there, they treat me well. Had a little scrambles match for the Dark Arts champion. Sadly, I didn't win. But about not this week, but next week, I'll be on their next show. So I'll be going back there again.
Excellent. Where did your training begin as a wrestler?
Well, all right. It's I like to say it started in Brooklyn and T2T, Technique to Training. Shout out to them. But before that, I've done like probably majority of kids. I've done like backyard wrestling stuff. I've done I used to when I don't know if you're familiar with like BWF. They used to have like an open ring up in the Bronx. So I would go there from time to time. Santana from like AEW, he had a school for a while, so I was like in there. But the school I'm in now, that is where I like been consistently.
Excellent.
The other schools is like I was just like going every now and then, but this is the first school I've been like consistent with.
Excellent. If you had a home promotion, what would you consider your home promotion?
Home promotion is
Some
actually, we'll say our school has a promotion, IWW, Industrial Wrestling World. I'm probably saying it wrong. Industrial World Wrestling. Yes. Sorry, my apology. So that, or I could probably say, along with that, I could say that and hmm, uh, Pro Wrestling Magic is coming sort of home because I've been there a few times.
Nice. How do you adjust going from promotion to promotion like that? Do you change a lot from your gimmick, or are you pretty much the same guy going place to place? Have you started switching from face to heel? What's it like going from promotion to promotion?
I'm pretty much the same. I'm pretty much the same person, you know. What just I turn it up a little bit, but when I'm in like Pro Wrestling Magic, um, majority of the places I've been, it's usually like people see me and then they cheer. I'll say like Let's Wrestle, which is like linked to Limitless Wrestling if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
That's probably like the first area where I started to do some type of heel work. Other than that, I've been like just mostly face.
As you as you shifted to being a heel, has there been anything particular you've liked different about being able to work in the ring as a heel? Things you were looking forward to that you couldn't necessarily do as a babyface?
Just being more arrogant and cocky, you know, because when I first initially thought of the legit Perfect Perkins persona, is kind of like a cocky and arrogant guy. So when I was as a face, I couldn't really find a way to like show that. So when as I got heel, I started to show it more.
What's your favorite finisher? What's the current finisher you're using right now?
I really when I first started, it was I was using like the perfect plex because I'm a huge Kurt Hennig fan. But as I got going longer in my career, so to say, I really don't have a finish because I'm perfect and I can just beat you with whatever move I want to beat you with, you know?
Let me ask you a question unrelated to your career. You brought up Kurt Hennig. A lot of people say he's the greatest IC champion of all time and the greatest person to wrestle to never win a world title. Is that how you feel about him?
Of course, yeah. I don't think when I think of Intercontinental, hold up, look at that right there.
That's awesome.
I have that belt because of guys like Brad Henning. You know, that's when I see that belt, I always think of him in the matches with him and Brad that had SummerSlam '91, King of the Ring '93, which is my personal favorite.
When you look at that version of the IC title, that's my personal favorite belt of all time, is that version of it. When you think about that title, you think Ricky the Dragon, you think Macho Man, you think Henning, you think Brett. Like, you think of all these great workhorse champions. When you think about these guys, do you ever try to emulate what you see them do in the ring when you're transitioning into being Perfect Perkins?
Yeah, I use a lot more of like Henning and some of like Henning and Brett stuff, but I'm at it's like I'm at an interesting era where like on the indies I'm like one of the big guys, so like I can't really use it all the time, but when I get a chance to use it, I use it, you know?
So as you adjust to working on the indies, because looking at the Indies right now, it's most known for the quick high flyers, the high spots, the stuff like that. How are you adjusting to the storytelling process, working with these high flyers and these guys that want to go 1,000 miles an hour? How are you getting them to slow down?
Uh, with my wrestling, my legit wrestling background, I wrestled for about 2 years in high school. I still wrestle every now and then I do a little jujitsu. So I base a lot of like wrestling holds, slams. That's how I stop the flippy guys.
Nice. Do you think your amateur background lends yourself to be able to call it in the ring like a lot of the old school guys want to say, because your ability to shoot wrestle and to be able to go, like, do you think that lends you the ability to kind of go in there and just let the crowd help you guys call the match as you flow?
Absolutely. Like I really like if I really don't like calling too much because it's like I don't want to be remembering all that stuff. And it's like I like to, even though I'm very early in my career, I'm not yet mastered it. I like to go out there and see what how the crowd, like hear the crowd and see what they're reacting to. So I don't like to call too much, but if it's needed, I'll call, you know. But I'll call, like let's say I'll call this person shine, come back in the finish, and then I'll tell them, listen, brother, I'm calling the heat in the ring, all right? Just keep your ears open, all right? That's how I like to, like if I'm formatting my match, that's how I like to break it down to my opponents.
When you're in there, do you feel like the crowd tells just as important story of what you guys are doing in the ring as a part of it? Does that make sense? Is the crowd just an equal part of the story as you and your opponent in the ring, using them to be able to bring heat, to get the pop, to bring comebacks? Do you think the crowd tells an equal part of your story?
Yes, they do. It can tell you as a heel, like it can tell you when you go if you're going too fast, slow it down, you know, stuff like that. And with the reaction, like let's say you hit a big move, and what we called, like we mapped this out backstage, and we were like, we didn't really get a reaction from that, but we got a reaction from me just having him in the corner, have his face up, running my mouth, and people like that more than you know what I called, as my trainers would say, like moments over moves.
Do you have a dream opponent that you'd like to work with at some point in your career?
It has to be on like the indies.
No, it could be anybody. I'm not being particular.
Let's see. I probably got like a few. I mean, obviously, I can't wrestle anything, but um, let's see. I'm gonna give you some bad. See, here's the thing. I didn't really start watching the indies until I started like wrestling. So like a lot of people I like don't know. Forget what I'm saying.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'll say somebody on the indies I would like to wrestle. Probably hmm, probably somebody like Jonathan Gresham. Yeah, because I've been to this. I did his seminar in like Atlanta, so that'd probably be cool for me to show a little bit more of my technical side. And somebody like more mainstream, probably some uh Brock. I'm a huge Brock Lesnar fan as well. So somebody like Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, John Cena, because in a way that's like my Hogan. So yeah, stuff like that, people like that.
Nice. Okay. Look, I close all of my interviews with 5 random rapid fire questions. They may be related to wrestling. They may not be. I've got your 5 queued up and ready to go. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. What was your favorite food growing up as a kid?
Pizza.
Nice. Pizza is one of my favorite foods. Pepperoni pizza, straight up, regular, no need to frills or anything. Favorite food on the planet. Who's your favorite musical artist or performing group?
Musical. Do you want to do it by genres or
If you had to pick one artist you were going to listen to the rest of your life, who would it be?
the rest of my life? Oh man. Let's see. Oh man, that's hard. I'll say Gregory Isaacs.
Really? I haven't
Yeah.
had that one yet. Okay. Do you have a dream venue of somewhere you want to work?
Uh, Madison Square Garden. Just being a New Yorker.
Absolutely. Are you a Knicks fan?
No, I really don't watch much basketball.
No. Yankees or
I really
Mets?
don't. No, I really don't watch
Any sports?
much sports unless it's like college wrestling, MMA, like stuff like that. I watch. Like I don't really watch any football, soccer, stuff like that. Just pro wrestling and any type of combat sports.
Anytime
What
I
I mostly watch.
Anytime I talk to somebody from a big metropolis city like New York or Chicago, I always find out where their allegiances lie with their pro sports, especially like New York, because I know the deep-seated rivalry between the Yankees and the Mets. Like they take that stuff seriously. The people from Chicago, like you either like the Cubs or you like the White Sox. You can't do both. So I was curious. I always ask. Do you have a favorite movie?
Favorite movie: Howard and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay.
That's a
I
fantastic pick.
I literally know that movie. Everybody's lines in that movie. Like I could pop the DVD and now, oh, I love that movie.
All right, my last question for you. Do you have a favorite city that isn't New York? I had to throw that in there because I always say Nashville because that's my favorite city, but I'm also from Nashville. So, favorite city not named New York.
I'll say Nashville because I really do enjoy my country music. You know,
Nice, excellent. Well,
I like my.
excellent. I'm sorry. Go ahead, plug your stuff. Tell everybody where to find you.
All right, on Twitter I am perfect _ Perkins. Instagram L perfect Perkins, and that's pretty much it. Oh, I have like it's a little experiment I'm doing on YouTube. It's called Legit Perfect Perkins Short. So if you find that, you follow that, subscribe.
Excellent. All right.
Pretty much it.
Well, I appreciate you stopping by
I
and
don't
chatting
even
about some wrestling
remember
with
if I
me.
knew anything else. Yeah, yeah. Talk about Henning. You know, we could chop it up next time. Talk about some Henning. Talk about some old school AWA stuff like that. Some Billy
Absolutely.
Robinson, maybe some Carl Gotch. You know.
For sure. We do weekly episodes where we like deep dive into stuff. We'll discuss like titles, histories and stuff where we've done one whole episode that was dedicated to the IC title. We did a whole episode that was dedicated to the 10 pounds of gold. And then we've done some where it's like we did the big gold belt, but only when it was the WWF heavyweight title from '02 to 2014. So we do like very specific discussions in wrestling history. We'll pick like a 10-year block and talk about the superstars and the titles and the matches in a block of history versus just the everyday run of the mill, what's happening in wrestling now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of our
No,
thing.
I don't really watch much now wrestling.
Do you feel like
But
something's missing from the modern day product from somebody who's from a early conversation from what we've been 20 minutes? Do you feel like there's something missing compared to some of the old days, especially since you brought up the AWA? That's a huge promotion that ran the territories forever. And what do you think about comparing where we're at in today's wrestling to comparing where the AWA was?
well, it's a lot more probably like loose back then, and everything's a little bit more like PC now, as people would say. So you can't really say or do the things they used to do back then. So probably because it's a lot less excitement, and it's more everything's online, so everybody's spoiling outcomes before you can see. I mean, I don't really even go online because I don't. If I'm gonna watch something, I don't really go online. Like I'm just good at staying away from stuff like that, but just other people can't, and that like ruins stuff for like people.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you, and like I said, we'll be in contact. We'll get you back on, and we'll chop it up with some of this old school stuff.
Yeah.